Hey y'all, welcome back to Movement Link. So I want to spend a few minutes here just talking about the hang position. So this is a very commonly misunderstood position, and the main thing that's misunderstood is why we do it and what the exact position is when we call something hang. So first of all, hang is just something that we use when we're talking about a clean or a snatch. And what it means is we're not going to start from the floor. So sometimes we'll start just hovering off the floor, and generally anything below the knee, we'll call it a certain amount off the floor. We'll say like mid-shin, or we'll say just below the knee. We'll say something like that. Anything from that at the knee, above the knee, all the way in, especially if we're doing a snatch into the hip position, we might use the term hang to tell you that that's where we want you to start the rep. So we want you to start by standing up and then maybe coming back down into a hang position as we go. We have a position that we call the hang, and in here, what we like to think about is how this is going to be something that looks exactly like our jumping position. So we do a lot of work from the hang. This would be my clean. This would be my snatch here. Notice how it's just a little bit out of my hip. We also have something that we call the hip hang. And the hip hang is specific for us for the snatch. And that would mean we want you bending over it, but we want you putting that bar in the hip. So something a lot of new people struggle with learning in the snatch is how to get that contact into the hip and how to keep that bar there for a little bit as we get that big launch up. So we use the high hang, which would be a position with the chest is straight up and down. Here's my snatch. Here's my clean for the high hang. We would drive the bar up. And then the benefit of this is as I do that, clearly I can't get a lot of power on it. So now that bar is going to be lower, even with lighter weight, and now I have to pull under to get low. So the main thing to keep in mind is that we use the hang, the word the hang, to mean we want you doing something from one of these ranges. And we'll give you more kind of guidance on that. But the main thing that we want to consider is that no matter what hang position we're going to use, we want it to be a position that is a part of your clean or a part of your snatch. Meaning I'm not going to come down into this position. So even though the barbell would technically be in a hang, this isn't part of my snatch. So what are those positions? The first pull takes us up. So now any of these positions for me would be hang, any of them. And then as I start to jump, any of these could be hang, working into the hip, working into the high hang as I drive the bar up. So the thing we want to keep in mind is that hang technically can be anywhere in here. And then as coaches, we'll give you more guidance, but we'll say just above the knee, we'll say an inch above the knee, we'll say in the hip, we'll say things like that to give you more guidance. If we don't, you can just pretty much assume that we're going to go from that trying to mimic the jumping position, so we're going to get as much carryover as possible into jumping and into the Olympic lifts kind of as we go. But the other thing is if we're working on strength, that's something else. And then if we're in a Metcon and we're trying to link cleans together or link snatches together, the hang turns into just whatever position you want that to be. And some people are just going to come down on snatches. I never let it leave the hip. But if I'm working on a heavy snatch, that's when I might come down just to get the movement pattern. But the way we might use a hang to work on skill for a strength exercise would be very different than how we use the hang in a Metcon. So if you're seeing hang in a strength exercise, we'll give you more guidance. If we don't, we just want you to mimic that jumping position. If you see hang in a Metcon, we want you figuring out what the best optimal position is for you to get that bar back down below the waist, staying above the knee, so you can drive it back up to keep yourself optimized in good positions and moving as efficiently as possible to get the most work done. So that's kind of the variations there in the hang. I know it's confusing, but you kind of pick it up as you go. Hope that helps. Talk to y'all soon.